Hi, I'm Debbie, and my friend Rose is not with us today. She's out of town, but I am so excited to share with you this diamond in the rough that I was able to purchase at our local thrift store. I'm going to hold it up for a second so you can see just how beautiful it is. Isn't that amazing? And guess what? I got it for $2. I was so excited. So as you can see, this one is tied. I have begun to take it apart. And when I deconstruct a quilt, I always work from the back side, because if there's ever any too much of a dig, I don't want to jeopardize the fabric on the front. I want to keep that as pristine as I can. So that's the first line of defense here, is we are going to deconstruct it. But before we do, let me talk about tying quilts. It is a very old art. It is used today still. There are lots of people who like to tie quilts. More air gets in between them, and some people believe they're much warmer because they are not tightly stitched. Because I'm a long arm quilter, I'm going to long arm quilt this puppy, and in about 3 or 4 more episodes, you're going to get to see this quilt finished, a la Debbie. Totally different than the way it looks today, but it's going to be amazing. So let's talk about the fabric. I'm guessing that this quilt is probably from the early to mid 1950s. And a lot of times grandmothers and aunts and moms took clothes that their children outgrew and cut them up and put them in quilts. And I see some evidence of that in this quilt. And it just makes it so near and dear to my heart, because somebody worked really, really hard to make this happen. And I'm here to tell you it was hand pieced. So this person who quilted this, and I'm sorry I can't tell you who she was or is, did beautiful work. Her stitching is just absolutely amazing. The batting that was used in this looked like it probably was batting. A lot of times they use flannel, they used old wool, but this is batting that is starting to fall apart, which is one of the reasons why we are deconstructing and going to requilt this with a new back and new batting. The back fabric on this quilt looks like it was probably a sheet, and sheets were okay in the day, but we don't recommend them because the thread count on sheets is different than the quilt quality cotton that we use today. So I am not going to try to preserve this back at all. I probably won't even use it in a repair on another quilt because of the thread count. It's very thin. The other thing I learned on this quilt, there's a lot of places on this quilt all the way around that have spots where the binding is just where the crease was. It is just totally disintegrated. And I think the reason for this is because there's only one layer of fabric here. That was the way they did it then. Today we fold that and we use a double layer of fabric, and I think that helps stabilize the fabric a little bit more, and it won't disintegrate like this. And of course, again, it was part of the sheet, so I think the thread count had something to do with that. So it'll take probably the best part of a week, because I will only do it when the light's good. But I will take this totally apart from the back side, and then I'm going to go over this with a fine-tooth comb. I have already found one spot here where there is no fabric. So I have a couple of options here. I can replace this square, but only if I can find something that resembles this fabric that is throughout this whole outside border. I can just stabilize it and quilt over the top of it, and stabilizing it will preserve it for a time. But I think what I'm going to try to do first is I'm going to try to take a little tiny bit of a bigger stitch or a bigger piece of the fabric, and I'm going to hand stitch this like the rest of it was, and then stabilize it. If I can get enough of a piece of that fabric to hand piece it and then stabilize it, we're going to be golden. So that's going to be what I look for when this totally comes apart. I'm going to go over it with a fine-tooth comb, probably press. Well, not probably. I will press. And that gives me a chance to look at all the seams and make sure that it's ready for the long arm machine. And once I get a new back and new batting, I will put this on the frame and I will quilt it with my long arm machine, and it will take on a whole new life and a whole new look. And hopefully another generation is going to be able to use and appreciate this quilt. So I want you to stay tuned, because you are going to absolutely love the way this little caterpillar becomes a butterfly.